she sold a property that made her end up having a lot of money in her hand. So before you know it, she casually started taking some kind of recreational drugs. Before you know it, she lost everything. And when I say everything, her children are now raised by their father and grandmothers. Oh. And she lost the money and she was on the street last time I checked.
Welcome to the show. I am your host, Anya Fombat, and I spark the hard conversations that challenge questionable cultural and societal norms that threaten the well-being of the African community. And I also share stories about growing up as Africans in Africa and in the diaspora. I strongly believe that normalizing open discussions and sharing experiences, whether good or bad, will not only make you find your voice, but will broaden your sense of purpose and empower others to do the same. So if you have ever tried challenging certain African cultural and societal doctrines, or if you have ever felt like it is about time that we confronted these issues in our African community and do better as a people, or even if you have always been interested in learning about the experiences of other Africans growing up in Africa and the diaspora, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Living African. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living African podcast with your host, Anya Fombat. And I have here with me today my big sister / big friend / mentor. And this is my Ethiopian sister. Her name is Kelem Kejela. And we're here to talk about mental health from a different point of view, and that also specifically in relation to substance abuse. So Kelem has a very, very interesting story. I've known Kelem for a very long time, I must say, and in case she doesn't know it, I really look up to her. So this is such a conversation that I'm really excited to have, and it's always fun with us. So I'm super excited to have fun, in this conversation, because that's just basically how it always is whenever we link up and we have a conversation. So welcome to Living African Podcast, Kelem. It's such an honor to have you. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you. And thank you for saying this kind word. But you are the young sister, definitely. And a big sister to my daughter.
Right.
Yes, and then we've been friends, family, colleagues, and everything, all the above.
I know, for almost 20 years.
Yes, it is.
I know. And it's been so much fun. You're that one person that I feel like you know every single person in Addis, like every single influential person in Ethiopia. It's like everyone knows Kelem. And it's like no, that's true. It's like, everybody, and, it's always so much fun, hanging out with you. Like you always you bring me into rooms that I never would have been if I were, if I didn't know you, so I really appreciate all the, the people that you have made me to meet and you've had me, mingle with, so I really appreciate that. But most importantly, I am super excited for our conversation today. So can you introduce yourself to the guests?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Kelem or Kejela, and I know it's a long name, but I have also a nickname, Munit, and in short, I'm Kelem anyway. So I'm born Ethiopian, but and also moved to America when I was a teenager, like 13, 14. Mm-hmm. So I pretty much graduated my high school in the U.S. and then after 21 years, moved back to Ethiopia. Yeah. So I'm a diaspora within Ethiopia. So I've been in Ethiopia for 20 years and back in Ethiopia and with my 2 kids. And I work for the United Nations. And also my 2 kids, my daughter has graduated high school and she's 3rd year in university in Boston. And my son is a senior this year, ready to, again, attend college. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so nice. It kind of feels like we all grew up together. I remember back in the days, like when we always used to meet up at, because my mom also is your colleague as well. Like, so we used to meet up.
Oh no, my boss. Your mom is my boss.
I don't want to get you into trouble, right?
Exactly, not college.
Well, yeah. Well, it feels like she's even your big sister, like I feel like my mom is more of your big sister than your boss,
Just, no doubt. I mean, she's definitely a big sister.
I know. And, like I feel like we just grew up with your two kids, they're like siblings, especially Daniela. She's like my little sister, so.
And you do look alike, the two of you.
I know.
That's why we always say Dr. Grace and I.
Right? Yeah. So, I really feel like, you're that one Ethiopian family that we can, really call family, So tell us, I really want the audience actually to know about your history, like how you grew up and who we're actually going to be talking about today in relation to substance abuse. Okay.
So this is a very dear and sensitive topic to me because my younger brother, he would have been in October, this past October, he would have been 34. Mm-hmm. He committed suicide 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. So obviously he's a young man who grew up in Ethiopia, finished high school, attended university in India. And when I came back to Ethiopia, by then he already graduated university, and then he was working, very handsome, very nice, very kind. But yet he was very quiet. He's the quiet type from among our brothers and sisters. I guess he's the only quiet one, and he was the youngest one. Mm-hmm. And so I came back to Ethiopia in 2002, and it was so nice to have him in my life. And he was working. He was, the big uncle or the youngest uncle for my children. Mm-hmm. And before I know it, things were changing. And he was working, but yet he couldn't keep up with the pressure that he was feeling within the society. And obviously he was, he's independent. He was independent, but yet not enough. I think that comes from the fact that he had mental issue, like the depression, and he couldn't cope. So with all the pressure, so before I know it, he started abusing some sort of, maybe alcohol first at the beginning, and then later is chat,
Mm-hmm. The grass.
It's very common here in Ethiopia, the green leaves.
Yeah, the green leaves, yeah.
Cat, they call it the cat. And the thing after that, maybe some kind of drug, but I don't know. But struggling, so we didn't notice first, but my mom one day, she went to his house and she realized there was nothing in his house because he was fired from his work, and then he had sold everything within the house to maintain his habit,
drug abuse,
or get his fix.
The addiction.
So addiction, yeah. And then she had to take him back home. And then, he lived with her, and he was also stealing from her, to keep up again with the addiction. And obviously he didn't leave with me, but I saw that. And then finally I gave in and I said, you know what, let me take you to rehab. And so I took him to rehab. I admitted him for 6 weeks. I attended all the meetings, brought him food every day. And he was clean. He was clean. And so finally he was discharged after 6 weeks, and I brought him home. And then we started life for him anew. So new clothes, new computer, new phone. And then he was in my house. And then at that time it was summer, and we left him in my house to go for the summer break. And then we're going to come back and look for a job for him. Mm-hmm. So I said, just relax. We come back. I come back, and he literally, stole everything. I mean, whatever he could take from the house and took and sold it to get money to buy. I don't know what kind of drugs, to tell you the truth, until this day, I don't know what kind of drugs that he was taking. So he relapsed, and then I kicked him out of the house. He went back to my mom's house. Next thing you know, my mom could not handle him. And again, we tried. The holy water here in Ethiopia is very well known to healing demons, So we decided to send him in one of the holy places, a church maybe 2 hours away from Addis, and for him to be baptized and then, be in the church for like a week or two. And then he went and he was okay, and he came back. And again, he relapsed. And my godmother took him, and again, he went to her house. He managed, and he couldn't handle it. I mean, I don't know what it was, but he just couldn't make it. So finally, it was a long process, but I think he was in this state of mind and addiction for close to 6 years. So it was a tough moment. And I keep blaming my mom, and I keep saying, it's you who's the enabler for him, because you give him this, you give him that. Because first I didn't know how deep it was.
Yeah.
So, but until it happened to me, and then at the time I brought him back to my house, that he gets out of control. So finally, I remember the day it happened, I called my mom and I told her that I was going to West Africa for the Ebola outbreak, and then I was just going to take an assignment. And I told her that I'm leaving, and she said, what are you going to do with your kids? And I said, you're going to come and look after my kids, and I'm going to go. And she said, no, I already have a kid. I said, what do you mean? So she was addressing my brother.
Yeah.
And I said, no, it's you. Get him out. Just leave him alone. Don't baby him. We tried everything. He's not responding. So let him, face his challenge on his own. So this is what I said to her on Monday. And on Wednesday, she calls me. I'm at work. And she says, oh, listen, he's gone. And I said, she's crying in the background. She says, listen, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. He's gone. And I said, who's gone? And she said, oh, his name was Alex. And he said, Alex hanged himself. And it was the saddest thing. Until this day, I hear that conversation with my mom, and it breaks my heart. And I said, oh, I still didn't understand. So somebody had to get on the phone and tell me the facts. So I was at work. I couldn't just, I don't remember if I was sitting or standing, but anyway, it was a heartbreaking moment. And I froze for a few minutes. And next thing I know, I understood what happened. So I packed up my stuff, and then I left to see my mom. And my mom lives, I remember, not in the city, but in Debre, which is 45 minutes away.
Yeah, 45 in an hour.
So I drove to her house to see, and it's true, he was gone. Yeah, so he committed suicide. So the bottom line is, Ethiopia now, he was the first one that I encountered that early in my life, but still what I see, especially through my job, also similar situation, young people getting addicted to some sort of drug, or some alcohol, I don't know, and there's quite a lot of drugs out there within the city, and people underestimate it, but I saw in my own eyes up to cocaine and Addis. So there's cocaine, and of course weed is everywhere, but at alcohol, I mean, you name it. And I don't know what kind of, in terms of prescription drugs there is, but I think
tramadol.
I think there's quite a lot, but there's, what the kids were, cough syrup.
The cough syrup, hand sanitizer. And hand sanitizer. And I heard that recently. And so it's out of control. And the sad thing is, there's no support. There's no treatment center. And the demand and the supply for the treatment, there's one, particularly that was just maybe 2-3 years ago, opened. The name of the facility is called Sitota. And that's where all the young people that are addicted to drugs are going nowadays. And most of them are kids from the private school, very well-to-do family, and addicted to some sort of drugs, and not getting enough help. And I think seeing my brother going through that underneath my own eyes, it's in a way a rude awakening. Like, you feel like you will know when something is going wrong, but really don't. And also I think it's because the anger and the frustration that you face day to day as a family. And that's what I think my frustration was coming from. And I used to say to my mom, stop supporting his bad habit. And then she said to me one day, if you have 5 fingers, if this gets winded or something, would you cut it off? And I said, since that finger is not on my hand, if I see this infection or some sort of a wound that's not healing, I said, I'll cut it off. But what she meant to say, as when it's her own finger, it's harder. And then I understood then as a mother, I said, you know what, I'm not going to judge, I'll leave it alone. So that's the time that he was really struggling with her, and they were struggling, and I couldn't intervene. And, I'm the one, by the way, when I moved back here, who sent him to India to do his university, and then come back here, get him a job, get him a car. But he couldn't handle it. And then finally he did commit suicide. And then I look back now when I see a lot of young people on the street, and I said, you know what, maybe he's in a better place. Right. Because like I said, there's not enough support out here. And the amount of drugs that is
out there, and it's not compatible to the environment and what's happening.
Yeah.
So where it's coming from, I don't know. It's all in the private schools now. I know nobody's talking about it. The big elephant in the room. I know it's everywhere in the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we do have some of our staff member also who goes through this kind of addiction.
Yeah.
So this is the road to where to recovery, but still it's a sore subject for all of us.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about him so that way he can still live
in
my mind and my heart.
Yeah.
But he was a sweetheart. I mean, he was a very polite, very handsome man, but and he had a beautiful girlfriend who wanted to marry him, but he refused. And then, but he's gone now, and at age could have been 34. Yeah, But he left so soon.
Yeah.
So this is the sore subject in our family, and I think after that, it left something within the family also that we all disconnected. I think that's the impact after his death.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Kelem. It's such a very sad story. I know that, you always mention your brother, but I never really got to ask what, for you to explain everything to me in this depth, just because I was very sensitive about whether you wanted to talk about it, until, when we were having a conversation and you said, hey, I can talk about this, then I was super excited because that would have also given me the opportunity to listen to his story firsthand from you. So I'm also listening to this. I'm learning about this for the first time with the audience, right? So now I want us to, we're going to definitely talk about a lot of the things there's a few things that you pointed out or you mentioned, which I would really love to talk about so that we can shed more light into it. But I want to go back a little bit to, when you were growing up with him. I mean, he was such a sweet kid, a calm kid, and everything. And so when did you realize that he had a problem? When did you start seeing things different? Because I would imagine that you probably were in the US and, you were not with him for most of the time. And then when you went back, when did you see that, hey, this person is different. This is not who.
Yeah, it's not himself. Yeah. It's true. So what happened is, like I said, I left very young. So growing up, he's my mother's son. He's not my father's son. So my mother divorced and she left and she had him. So he pretty much we didn't grow up together anyway, not in the same household, but he always came and visited the family and he was the joy of my mom. That's the only child that she raised on. Most of us were raised by my dad and by a helper in the house. So he, honestly speaking, we didn't know him that well, especially myself and my older brother and sisters. But my younger two sisters knew him very well because they were younger. And then when we left for America, so they lived together. So we knew about him. We always, when we sent something for Christmas, we sent for the three of them. And we always knew that whenever we talked to my mom, he was always with her. So honestly speaking, I can't say that I knew Alex personal level until I came back to Ethiopia, which was in 2002. By then, he was just graduating high school. So I came back. So when I came back, I saw him that just finishing high school, but he tried to go to the U.S. and he couldn't. He was refused a visa a couple of times. So finally I said, you know what, if you want to go to really do your university, I know India has a good program, so let me send you there. And he said, okay. So he was willing, he was attentive to my kids, myself, always respected me, addressed me by my name. And so honestly, didn't know that he was suffering from anything because what I knew was always the same. Yeah. So finally, after he came back from India, he was wanting to go out partying, which I allowed that. He wanted to wear the fashion clothes I bought. But then he started lying, things start missing things around the house. And my mom is complaining. Everybody else is complaining in the house. And then I start seeing his eyes turning red, slowly. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Plus, this kind of stuff is not common, especially it's not common early. Now I can tell you that it's very common. The young girls and boys are doing drugs. Yeah. And so that time, for me, it was new. Even when I was in America, I was not in any shape that I was not encountering any anyone with substance abuse. I didn't know anyone. In fact, maybe alcohol. I saw a lot of alcohol drinking. Other than that, I didn't see anybody using drugs. So finally, when I realized that he's having, and then he starts smoking, so you start smelling him, and then his fingers and his throat, his lips was changing. So finally, that we knew that he was doing something. So then I said, you need to stay at my house because I have young children, and then you're not going to be a good influence. And that was it. So, but other than that, no one can say in our family that he was this, he was that. Never. He was the kindest person, always willing to help, but he ended up being addicted to, I couldn't tell you, like I said, which drug, and he had an addiction and he needed money and he couldn't keep up with that demand. And then he sold everything that can find. Yeah. And then my mom started locking her house. And, one time we even gave him a car and then he even sold the car. But anyway, we managed to get it back. But it was a long process. And so just to go back and now looking back, like I said, when I see a lot of young men and women on the street and the rehab center and the treatment center, I keep saying my brother is in a better place.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know for sure that substance abuse, especially in addition to mental health, is it's still a relatively new topic in our African community, especially back home. It's still something that people are trying to wrap their heads around because we all know that we're, in our communities back home in Africa, we're used to all of the communicable diseases, the diseases that we can, feel, right? We can, it's like diseases that hurt us not mentally, but physiologically. Like you have a bellyache or you have a headache, things that can communicate with you. But now we're talking about mental health that some people even think is an illusion, right? People think like, if you feel down or if you're depressed, everybody has been through this situation. You'll be just fine, like just put yourself up. Or if you're feeling down, it means you're weak, So
it is related to weak, especially for men, for boys.
Yes.
You cannot express that emotion that I'm feeling sad. I don't feel like
you
can express that.
You can express that. And, I was just thinking about it and I was like, this may actually be one of the factors that push, especially the men, to drugs, to substance abuse, because they are looking for an outlet to cope, like to put that depression, that weight. So that's their own coping mechanism to cover up everything so that they shouldn't be looked upon as weak and stuff. So, and then the more they go deeper into that hole of substance abuse, the more they're trying to, use it to cover even more things, as much as they're also trying to feel, they're trying to have that feeling. They're trying to make up for that initial feeling. Like, I know I've read in a couple of books and I've also watched a couple of videos that say, how people get addicted is like when you first get introduced to the substance, whatever it is that you are addicted to, there's some rush of dopamine. There's that height of pleasure that you feel that you're always trying to meet up to that. Yes. There's that feeling that you're always trying to get. So the more you use substances, you're trying to get to that height, that initial feeling, but you can never really get to it, So I really feel like this is a topic that is very important for us to talk about, because I'm just thinking like if this was something that was normal, or at least something that it wasn't foreign in our community, maybe Alex would have opened up to talk to someone, like this is how I feel. Yes. I feel stressed. And also, the whole ideology of men in our African community, they have to be strong. They have to have their own. So maybe he was feeling so much pressure trying to build his own life and trying to have his own, that he just could not cope by himself and he needed some kind of assistance from a substance, So just when you were talking, I was just thinking about all of these things and I was like, I know you came from a very good family. You came from a well-off family. You guys were not like, I would think that money was not a primary issue. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to be in Addis, or at least Ethiopia, which is very relatively advanced compared to other African countries. The struggles we went through in Cameroon are not the same struggles we went through in Ethiopia, So Ethiopia is way more advanced, So I was trying to figure out, just trying to think about the possible issues that he may have been facing or the demons that he may have been fighting without even having the chance to talk to anyone, because number one, nobody could really understand what was going on because he did not talk about it. And he was probably afraid of being judged by the community. Yes.
Looking weak. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you touched the good points too. And I think from my side of view, I said, what's wrong with this kid? So I'm judging him too.
Yeah. And so you're also asking, like, you don't know, you're trying to figure it out as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like I said, if there was a space or acceptance within society where you can really express your feelings, and that would have been okay. But today, in 2022, still, I know a lot of men cannot accept counseling as a treatment.
Yes, like that's true.
That's a sissy. That's not man's work.
Yeah,
it's you ladies. That's you talking. And
also most men cannot accept counseling from a female counselor because they don't see a woman talking to them, telling them what to do. That's another trend that I have seen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even what to do when you go to counseling. I mean, you just sit there and then talk about your own problems so you can reflect on what you've gone through. So, like I said, I have a boy and a girl, and I see the difference. My daughter is open to any counseling service, get it. But my son, he said, what for?
Yeah.
So, and I keep reminding him, it's like breathing and venting and then taking things off your chest and trying to find another way of handling things. So again, that's society. We need to wake up before we lose more guys that are struggling through this depression or, so they will be saved. And also young girls now. And when I go to this treatment center, which is, I do attend a lot because my job also, but also on a personal level, another friend of mine who is not a young girl, but younger than I am, but had 3 kids. I love it to death because she's a very pure soul. Mm-hmm. And she sold a property that made her end up having a lot of money in her hand. So before you know it, she casually started taking some kind of recreational drugs. Before you know it, she lost everything. And when I say everything, her children are now raised by their father and grandmothers. Oh. And she lost the money and she was on the street last time I checked because her family sent her to a treatment center in South Africa for 3 months. She came back. She relapsed again. She was in the treatment center here in Ethiopia for 1 month, 6 weeks, 2 times or 3 times, and she relapsed. So she's on the street. Oh. She's homeless. So it's out of control. And so for me, talking about the 2 people that I really dearly love, my younger brother, who is no longer with us, and my very good friend who's on the street today, is a victim of a mental illness because I know she has mental illness in her family. Mm-hmm. And I think the fact that she was taking this drug, I think expedited her or her mental illness, made it exposed. Like in terms of medically, they said, if you have any kind of mental illness, you shouldn't be abusing any substance. Yeah. Because that expedited. And then I think that is the reason why she's on the street today, because looking back now, talking to her family, definitely she had some kind of a depression. And then she ended up, abusing the substance. So you're right. If we accept some kind of treatment, like counseling, those kind of things be hopefully minimized or treated earlier. Yeah.
And, it's very easy for people to say, oh, how can you be well off and then or how can you have someone in your life and then you're driving on the road and you see them on the street and don't you feel bad? Or how can you have someone in your family who has mental illness or at least even substance abuse problems and you just let them be? You don't, you don't do everything you just let them kill themselves or something. It's very easy to judge from the outside. But these, at the end of the day, these are adults, number one. These are adults, and they would, if it was a kid, maybe we can have a case. They're like, oh, you could tie this kid down or lock the doors. But these are adults that, even though they're not making rational decisions, but at the end of the day, they're adults, and they will not let you do certain things to them. Like your brother would probably not let you tie him down, to say you're not going anywhere or whatever. And, all he needs to do is just open the door and go and not communicate with you. And then one time you see him on the street and you want to take him off the streets, for example, and he would not want to come, and you cannot really do much, because you can't bring the police because they're adults and they haven't committed a crime, So
no, they didn't.
Yeah, if anything, they're sick, So what are one of the things that from your experience, and I just wanted to put this disclaimer out there, I should have done that when we started. Like we're not trying to spill out facts. We're talking strictly based on experience.
Personal experience.
Yes,
exactly.
Personal experience. So what are one of the issues, like one of the signs, and I'll not even say signs, but what are one of the struggles that, you had seen with your brother, when he was doing, when he was abusing the drugs and stuff like that, in addition to the fact that he did not really want to, talk about it with you. And also, he basically sold everything. So what were one of the struggles that you faced as a caretaker, caring for him as a whole?
Again, between my mom and myself, of course, we looked after him, but our intentions were different. I mean, she was worried about what people were going to say.
Yeah.
The
typical African mom.
Yeah, typical. She was sad for him, but yet she's worried about what the neighbor's going to say, what the auntie's going to say. And I said, I don't care what they're going to say. He is sick. He needs help. And then the beauty is, as soon as I approached him, like the 2-3 times I put him in rehabilitation center, he was positive. He was willing. He didn't resist. Each time I approached him, he was, sorry, my dog is barking. Anyway, so he was fantastic, when it comes to that. And, but in terms of my friend, my friend,
your friend,
the one, she is refusing because this is today, and his is 7 years ago, and then I guess 7 plus 6, almost 13 years ago. In her case, even the society now, even the terms of security guards and the police, they are aware of the drug, what's doing to people, what's happening in the society, but nobody's talking about it openly yet.
Yeah.
But in her case, because she had money, of course, whoever the suppliers are always looking after her to supply her needs.
Yeah, yes people.
And she has the money. Mm-hmm. And so there's that. So the fight is not only them who are looking after. The dealers, the suppliers are the ones that are on your way, and you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And that's what's crippling the society now. Until it's talked about openly and then addressed, kids in school are eating brownies, I think baked with some kind of drug. Yeah. And they're collapsing in school. And that's been reported a couple of the private schools. And I don't know. And then the kids are not saying anything. That somebody supplied them, and then they're not going to point this is who supplied us. So they're not, because they're telling them that they'll threaten them, saying that we'll kill your parents or something like that. So it's not an open yet, but the struggle is just starting. And in fact, a lot of diasporas from America too, they're bringing their children back here, the ones that are going through this addiction problem, to make the matter worse, because looking for the holy water and thinking that will heal. And then sometimes it does heal if you believe in it. But those kids are medically, physically, chemically needs to be
addressed,
rehabilitated, addressed. Because the problem is deep.
Yeah, it's deeper than that. That's true. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to ask, right? I've always wanted to know, because I know, when I first went to Ethiopia, that was almost 17 years ago. I always saw especially guys on the streets, just casually chewing that green leaf. I forgot what you called it.
Chat.
Yeah.
Cat is in English, they pronounce it, chat.
Yeah,
that was more common in some tribe. It was traditional thing during fasting season, and then to do meditation, to pray. Yeah, and now it's everywhere during the daytime, nighttime.
Yeah, people just chewing it. So what is in that? What is in that stuff in those leaves? What is it? Is it like a?
I think it's. I don't think it's not suppressive, but I mean definitely.
Does it make you high?
Yes, it does make them high. And then to activate it, if you take sweet, this is what I was told, it's enhanced it. So the high will last for 24 hours or something.
Oh my God.
and then it's a cash for Ethiopia. It gets exported to all the Middle Eastern side of in this side of Djibouti. Daily, there's a flight that goes to Djibouti and Somalia region and Yemen. I don't know if they're still doing it today, but so it's.
And is it addictive?
Openly. It's openly.
Yeah, because it's still not like being censored or like, it's just like walking on the street. People still chew it,
Yeah. And then it's in the afternoon. So once they chew that, and then if either they're zonked out or they're awake and then driving, they would be dangerous.
Yeah, under the influence.
And then over time, use of course affects your mental status. And the more you do it, the more you react less, but yet damage yourself more. Yeah. And a lot of people, I mean, it does also affect the GI system, but it's openly done.
Wow.
It's not considered as, I mean, obviously in Europe and America, it's considered drug, so you cannot use it or take it around. But here in Ethiopia, it's openly used.
So do you think maybe that could have been what jump-started like Alex's addiction, because he started from that and then went to some other thing?
I think so, because it's widely available. It's cheap at that time, but now it's expensive. I think that's where it started, because his teeth and his appetite also suppresses your appetite. So I think that's where it started, definitely. Yeah. And then a lot of students use it just to keep them awake and then to keep them going and during exams time. But now, once you started, you can't stop. Because like you said, you want that fix the first time, fix over and over again, but it doesn't happen. I think that's where it started. But now I can't say much, but I know there's quite a lot of
other things,
drugs that are out there, but I don't know where it's coming from.
Right. I wanted us to actually talk about that because, and this is basically based off of what we could be predicting or what we may have experienced personally and stuff, because on a personal level, I feel like, of course, I know we have a problem, especially in the continent of Africa, like I said, because mental health and substance abuse is something that is just getting new. I honestly feel like with the emergence of social media, that has really exacerbated the use of substance abuse, basically the rate of substance abuse, because the Western culture has kind of romanticized the use of drugs, even in like lyrics and, getting drunk on Robitussin, or what is the other one? I don't even know.
Tramadol.
Yeah, just all this other medic drugs, illicit drugs, they have kind of romanticized it. And, here, quite all right, people who are addicted have more resources and even better resources than, back home in Africa as a whole. And I say Africa because in the whole continent, it's, even in our culture, it's not part of our culture. So, the exposure through social media to the Western culture is kind of like diluting our own values back home and introducing, especially the young generation and even our generations as well, to the use of illicit drugs to make it look cool. And also, believe it or not, there's a lot of people struggling with one thing or the other in our continent. I mean, even all of my adult life has been in America. But growing up in Africa, when I was in my, adolescent ages, there were just so many struggles. Like, even from school, boarding school was so harsh, and, we didn't have access to money like that. So believe me, it wasn't even a priority. But if we had that access to drugs, many people would have probably depended on drugs just to numb the struggles and the pain. So I feel like the emergence of social media has exposed us to, access. I would say access, not that social media brings us the drugs, but like seeing the lifestyle of, especially the Western culture. We yearn that in our continent. And then now we try to look for different ways to have that access to medication. Either we do that in the kitchen, like how we were talking about hand sanitizer, people getting addicted to hand sanitizer, or people just go online, Google, and look for different concoctions and put together. Or people can, like, for example, as we were talking earlier, Ethiopia is kind of a hub in Africa because, you guys have a very fantastic airline, and everybody going to Ethiopia, most people actually have to stop in the Addis before going to the next, into the next. So it's like you bringing African Union to Ethiopia, not the organization, please. But it's like you're bringing, all this Africans. No,
Africa's connected with the rest of the world.
Yes.
Ethiopian Airlines, definitely.
Yes. So
the
it's
map
like
is all connected, yeah.
Right. And then everyone comes in, some people stay, some people come from not only Africa, actually, other parts of the world. They come into Ethiopia. Europe, and of course they bring whatever, So I feel like that is where the problem, that contributes to the problem as well. What do you think?
Yes. Like you said, I'm not claiming anything, but just from my personal view, I know proud of Ethiopian Airlines, but definitely Ethiopia Africa has been connected with the rest of the world thanks to the airlines. So that has, I think, definitely opened that avenue for different illicit drugs to come and go, maybe, because none of it grow. Obviously, chat is growing within the country, and then it's widely available, and then it's openly practiced. But the rest, the cocaine stuff, obviously, is coming from outside.
Outside, yeah.
Definitely. And then how it's gotten here, obviously through the airline, most countries in South America and in America, it's suffering the same way it's been shipped in and out. But again, because the awareness is not there yet, maybe now better than maybe 10 years ago, but now I'm sure maybe they're looking into it. They have sniff dogs now, but yet I'm sure it came somewhere from Asia and then going to West Africa and then coming from South Africa to, all direction. I don't know. Yeah. But definitely it's available. Where it comes from, I don't know. But definitely that will be the source. Yeah.
And also with respect to pain medications, and when you say West Africa as well, I can also relate to Cameroon, because I actually know people like extended family members or even like friends or classmates or whatever. I know people who are either currently addicted or are in remission. Hopefully they don't relapse, or people who have lost their lives to the use of illicit drugs, and it's so sad because a lot of people just ingest these substances without really knowing exactly what they're taking. And some of them know actually, but I also feel like another thing that is going to, or actually is currently exacerbating the use or the abuse of especially pain medications is a lack of regulation. Anybody can walk into a pharmacy and get tramadol. Anybody can walk into a pharmacy and get oxycodone, So there is...
The good thing we don't have that much of a prescription drugs. The extent will be tramadol at this point within Ethiopia. Other than that, oxycodone or codeine is not available. That is not available, at least to my knowledge, in the pharmacy level. Right. But like you said, those are that's how you get the prescription for following your surgery, some kind of surgery procedure, and then you will end up being addicted to the prescription drugs, and then it becomes out of control. I think in that level here, maybe, I don't know, honestly, that I have not seen, but from the chat's point of view or from alcohol level, yes, it's higher. And then the other one, like cocaine and crack, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's out there. It's there.
Yeah. And, these are the kind of things that, our lawmakers need to look into and be more vigilant about, because this is a silent killer. Like in the next maybe 5-10 years, like it's probably going to be a public health emergency. And these are the things that our lawmakers in Africa and even the healthcare providers need to be on the watch for, because this is a silent killer, especially mental health. I really wish that we had as many facilities and as much focus to mental health. And but I've seen an improvement for sure in, the focus that we're putting to mental health.
Yes, but the population and the demand and the supply.
It doesn't balance off,
It's not balancing out. Yeah. But otherwise, yes, there's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also wanted to mention something that, something that's not common maybe. On the street now, there's a lot of, young kids, homeless, and they call them the sniff boys. And what they're doing, they're sniffing glues.
What?
Glue. It's a heavy glue to stick things,
Oh my God.
And and then they keep it in a plastic bottle, like a disposable plastic bottle, and then they keep the glue there. They inhale it. So
how do they inhale it? They just the smell of the glue?
The smell of the glue. And so I think they heat it up maybe, because sometimes it's golden. And I've interviewed, I walked around and I took my son to see them. And so what they said was, listen, suppresses our appetite, our hunger, and then it keeps us warm, and then it keeps us happy. So I didn't tell them to stop doing it because I didn't have any solution for them. And then to tell them just, this is not good for you. But this is also something that's out of control on the street.
Oh my God.
And those kids, when they're high on this glue, they are very violent and they fight with each other, they make the street unsafe. And like you said, our lawmakers have to be aware on those developing things within the society and address it, and then have a proper rehabilitation center. And those kids, they grew up on the street, so they only need a mental health treatment. They need a holistic kind of approach that will help them recover, because they are destroyed. I'm sure, I don't know what kind of effect will have on their brain or on their development.
Wow.
That's also something that's out of control and done openly.
Wow.
And like you said, it's true. Our lawmakers are the one needs to really address. And then I heard a couple of times that the government is trying to help them, assist them to get them off the street. And then one time they took them to a camp and they came back again. So it's not removing them from the street is what's going to help them. Yeah. They need to be addressed. Yeah. And they're becoming thieves. They're becoming criminals now. Yeah. Because they have nothing to lose. Yeah. So, so the drug abuse is not only the prescription drugs and then not only alcohol. And
it's like concoctions, different.
Concoctions, the ones that you said. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'd never heard about that, And one thing that I want to commend you for is like taking your son to see the reality of what these people go through, I mean, unfortunately, we're not at a position to have as many resources to help these people and provide them solutions because, I feel like on a larger scale, the government should be able to do that, but taking your son to see the realities of what these people are going through is going to be very impactful, I hope, so that he knows that, hey, if I do this, this is where I could possibly end up, So that's such a good thing. It's one thing that we're starting to have facilities, right? Rehab facilities to care for these people. But I strongly feel like we focus on only the initial care and people don't really put like the relapse into account, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, he or she spent 3 months in this facility and they're totally fine. Hey, they look good. They feel better and we let them go and that's it. They should be fine. Now, if they relapse, then it's on them. But I honestly feel like treatment and healing from mental health and substance abuse is a journey and not a destination, because the chances of relapse is extremely high. Like, think of it this way. Think of like your favorite meal and, or a favorite moment that you had in your childhood. And then you see something just random that reminds you of that favorite meal, for example, and you start craving it. It's like you want to go and eat that meal and then all you can do is just make an order or cook the meal, right? I mean, I'm no expert, but I honestly feel like that could also be one of the things that is going on, because you are feeling better at that moment and, you're drug free and you're clean, but like it takes just one trigger.
It can relapse.
Yeah. Yes. It takes just one random trigger that you don't even know about that will bring that urge for you to go back to the drugs. And the urge will be more than your willingness to fight it, and that's how you go back. So I know that they're not, again, we don't have resources, right? Because if we had resources, I feel like we would have been able to better handle like relapse cases, I mean, the system doesn't have resources as much as the patients themselves. They don't even have the money to keep going back,
And the country level. As a whole African country, we're just waking up and struggling to, first of all,
put food on the table,
implement peace. Then first, the food and the peace is the priority at this point. While we're tackling this major aspect, there's this drug problem, and that's finishing the youth. This is the future. This is the future generation. I don't think if we don't handle it now, there's not going to be a lot of them who can take over and then, run the country.
Yeah.
That much is what I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because the unemployment is so high that the youth are easily drifted to this kind of easy way out. And that requires a lot of money and stuff like that. But so, like you said, this is another topic for next time. But true, it's just, again, at home, there's no home, for those street kids. Obviously, there's no home to begin with. And it's like, so you wonder, like, why are they on the street to begin with? That's the main source, and obviously those ones that are already addicted, I don't know how it's going to be handled, but at least to cut it in the bottom, you have to take the girls from the street also off the street. Yeah. The girls are also having babies on the street and they get hooked on the same routine. And then before you know it, it's a vicious cycle. And Africa as a whole needs to really address this issue, as a priority with the peace. Yeah. Peace is also another priority, but this is also something that's happening in the 21st century for all of us. And then, it's killing Africa. Yeah. It's killing the youth.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And another thing that, I really want to encourage our people to do is just to speak up, because I can only imagine the demons that Alex was fighting, and I feel like at the point where he took his life, he probably was not able to fight those demons anymore. Like he was at the end of it, like not any money could fill that void. Nothing could help that pain or that battle that he was fighting. And he was like, I'd rather end this than to keep, fighting back and forth. Yeah.
Because, he's hurt his mother. He saw his mother, really sad. And then I tell you, my mother at the end, when he died, she couldn't cry. I think, in my opinion, she ran out of tears. Yeah. Because she said, I already buried my son 6 years ago.
Oh, my God.
So she said, now he's in a better place. So you're right, the demon and the coping mechanism. And, like, again, at home, the message for all of us as mothers, we need to help our kids to help them express their feelings and to deal with any shortcomings, and then not to label things, so that way they can express themselves.
Yeah, and you do a very good job at that, actually.
But, it's not easy.
Yeah. You do a good job at that. So. I've watched you from the sidelines. It's not easy. It's not, but it's not easy. I feel like you've done a wonderful job, at that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And never forget that. I know my mom tells you all the time, but never forget that. You're such a wonderful mother.
Thank you. It's not easy, but like you said, especially being single mom.
Yeah.
But I have the support system that helps. Dr. Grace is number one in here. The grandmother, she says, she calls them. She addresses herself when it comes to their eyes. So, but I hope this, like you said, the beginning of this conversation, but we cannot tackle it on our level. But again, if we all speak about it, that will become normal, and then we can find a solution together.
Yeah, I agree. So are there any centers that you may know, like, for example, in Ethiopia, that you can recommend people to go to if they have any problems, or if they know anyone that has a problem mentally and also with substance abuse?
Sure. In the government center, the Paulos St. Paul Hospital has a rehabilitation center. Mm-hmm. And also a private level will be Sotota. It's a hospital privately run by Dr. Jonas.
In Addis.
Fantastic physician, psychiatrist that also run this treatment center where I took my friend and a lot of patients from our organization also. Mm-hmm. And he's done a good job, but we need more. Because we are 120 million people, and it's not enough. Yeah, we need more centers like that, equipped with the expertise that needs, in every addiction. Yeah, and the society will be easy on those people also. I mean, obviously it's an addiction, and they're not there because. I don't think they're there. I mean, obviously they're there because they've done an experiment, but it's harder to get out. So be more sympathetic and then give support. Yeah. And then I see a lot of family also burning out, but it's not, like you said, it's a journey, but for that burnout to minimize, to have a support system. Yeah. Further. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, how can people reach out to you if they want to chit chat?
I guess I'm not the social media person, but my email, my Gmail address I shared you. And,
Okay.
I guess on Facebook there's a messenger, right?
Yeah, messenger.
Yeah, but and my dog is still barking. So I don't know if you can hear it.
I can.
Yeah, so I guess we have to continue talking about this again.
Yes, definitely.
There's a lot of aspect to this. Is just the beginning. Then maybe we can focus on the treatment part of it. Maybe
yes. Yes, for sure. I really, really had a great time having this conversation with you. And I know we've come to the end of this conversation, but this is just the beginning. So what other last words do you have for our audience, especially those residing in Africa?
Again, like you said it earlier, let's talk about it. And I know in every household, there's one, if not two, family member going through this addiction problem as we speak. And having this addiction and with a mental health problem, underlying mental health problem, it's a bad combination. So the early intervention is better. So to talk about it, to ask for help, to reach out and to give them some kind of support so that way they don't shy away, and then to go more deeper in the abuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So earlier when you see the sign, to approach people and maybe address the problem earlier before it gets worse.
Yeah.
And I'm available if they need any kind of support, whatever I went through, I can share that experience.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kelem, for sharing. It was such a pleasure having this conversation with you. It's not easy to reminisce and share such a very deep and heavy story. And you had that courage to share. You know, you've always been courageous. So I'm not surprised that you're sharing your story, you know. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you as a sister. I appreciate you as a friend. Thank you for all you do. And I just want to also end by encouraging our community to talk. You know, I feel like that's why I started this platform, to give us a safe space to have conversations. So I hope that this topic actually sparks conversations within people in our African circles and even out of our African circles. I hope that everyone can learn at least a few things from this episode and also identify, hopefully the episode helps our audience identify certain things that they need to look for in their loved ones if they're struggling with anything mentally or with substance abuse, because we do not want people's lives to end like the way Alex's life ended.
Yes.
You know, so this is really why we're trying to shed more light on this to save lives, you know, so people don't, you know, run into the same predicament that you did, you know. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you and I love you.
Yeah, thank you. I hope it went well.
I know it did. So I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening to our show. If you want to participate in the show or find out more helpful resources, then visit www.livingafricanpodcast.com for more information, or email us at hello@livingafricanpodcast.com. Also, don't forget to connect with us on all social media platforms at Living African Podcast. You can also connect with Anyo directly on Facebook or Instagram at Anyo Fambard. Thanks again for listening, and let's not forget to be more understanding and nicer to one another.